What you want me to be? Like a Rorschach test, I see what I see. I'm never gonna be what you want me to be. What you want me to be? Like a Rorschach test, I see what I see. I'm never gonna be what you want me to be.
All right, what is going on, guys? It is Adam, aka Marf, and this is Marfoogle News. Today, we're going to have a conversation. This is a video that is definitely geared towards anyone that has not watched the show, and definitely towards your friends and family members. If you're Marfia, if you've been with us for a long time, this is a really good one to share with your friends and family members. And then at the very end, for you guys, we're going to go over parts of this new trailer that just came out. Another Civil War themed movie that is coming out, the blockbuster. Now, we are actually working on a crazy project right now, which is really insanely detailed. Dex and I, and it is really crazy, the stuff that we were finding with the last movie that came out with the Leave the World Behind. So we're going to go over that at the end. But we're more going to have a short conversation, very short conversation about what is happening right now, where we are at right now with the world, where it is going, and of course, show you and some of your friends and family members some of the bigger things over the last few months that have happened. And these are really important stories that everybody knows. This was inspired by a friend that I haven't talked to in a pretty long time, and essentially talking about how they kind of had the basics of how things weren't really going that well. And I was like, you don't even know the half of it. And what would you send, a friend? If you were trying to tell your friend or family or somebody you haven't seen in a while, if you were to tell them, give them, I don't know, a good handful of pieces to read, what would those be? Well, we actually put a list together that you could send your friends and family members, and they're like, okay, yeah, maybe there is something going on here. And maybe I should get prepped. So that is what we are going to show you here today. But first, let me bring in my co-host/internet brother, Dex James. What is going on, and how are you doing today?
Well, hello, Adam, and hello, Foogle fam. I'm doing just fine.
Now, remember, all of the links, these are stories that we have already gone over, and all of the links are going to be available over on marfooglenews.com. You have a full bibliography of every single article, tweet, video, picture, document we're going to show you here. And then after this, if you want to join us over on our sister channel, we're going to go over the last 24 hours of everything that has just happened and just transpired, including all of the stuff with Israel, with everything else. First of all, everybody knows about Israel and Hamas. Everybody knows about Ukraine and Russia. But many people don't know about most of the other, conflicts that are in the makings, like Venezuela and Guyana, which the U.S. is apparently going to be siding with Guyana. Of course, North and South Korea, where we will be supporting South Korea. We already are. Taiwan and, of course, China. And then, of course, China and the Philippines, which we have actually fresh news from today that says that they are going to be most likely, that could pull us into a very horrid event. The meaning of this video is not to scare people. It is, again, to have a conversation and to especially let your friends and family members that are not prepping and give them a reason why they should be getting a basic plan together. So first of all, Dex, we're going to go over a couple things here. A lot of the hacking stories, and we just pulled up a couple of the really big stories. A lot of the hacking stories that are happening right now, for those that don't follow our show every day, for those who are not subscribed and don't really watch a lot of independent news, they might catch, little tidbits here and there off of mainstream media. But there have been a ton of hacking events. And this is what we try to tell our friends and family, like there's real stuff going down. Many times we tell our friends and family members to deaf ears. They're just like, okay, sure, okay. It's always something, right? Well, at this point, it really is. And it is getting to a point of no return. Dex, as far as the hacking events, what have we seen, and what can we back up with solid bibliographies for the last year? What have we seen as far as hacking events?
Look, you can start as far back as solar winds. You can go way beyond that. I think the big thing that I try to tell people when I'm talking to them to help them understand what's happening is this notion of cyber attacks is a long game, and it's not a long game in the future. It was a long game in the past. They have been planning this for a very long time. We get information out in the public that says, "Oh yeah, somebody attacked this small water company in Pennsylvania," or another location got hit too, or maybe a power substation might have had some sort of issue, but they don't report all of that. Or now we hear about Hawaii and oil and gas pipelines and other things, but they won't necessarily tell us the breadth and depth of the actual problem. The problem goes across all of our infrastructure, and the reason why it's there is because we don't know it. If we knew it, we'd get rid of it, and it wouldn't be a problem. Our adversaries have invested heavily over the years to infiltrate as many places as possible and create opportunities for them to come back at the right time to do something. Those are called backdoors. They've created them, they've found them, they've opened them up, and they've got them all over the place. And that's what is and it's not just to wreak havoc on ransomware. That's other people that are just generating money. These are the state sponsored groups that are there ready to sort of execute the plan when the plan is ready to be executed, and they're sitting and waiting.
And so there's many reasons. So to folks that you're talking to that are not following this on a daily basis, they do not catch 95% of what you are following. Many folks in our audience, and this is not this isn't to kind of take a jab at somebody who this was shared with that doesn't watch this a lot, or purposely kind of either ignores it or tries to not think about a lot of the negative. It's not a bad thing to try to keep positive and surround yourself with positivity. But we are at a point where I think that people really need to take a stop, like a full stop, and realize that you really need to have actual preps at this point. And then you can go, once you have like a basic plan, you have something set up, then you can go back to trying to ignore it when you've got a good stock. And if an emergency happens and you're prepared for that, then you can go back to that. You can ignore all of the news because you're prepped. But most people consider themselves never, prepped enough. Nobody's prepped enough. There are billionaires that have bunkers under all of their homes, like Bill Gates. He literally has a bunker all under all of his major mansions. But he's still not prepped enough. You never feel prepped enough. It doesn't matter. There's always going to be something you don't think of. Even the top billionaires say they have a full staff, and when the world ends, they'll have a full, community underground. Well, how are you going to pay your staff? How are you going to pay your, security guards if the money is worthless? Now, these might seem so far-fetched for a normal person. They're like, oh, okay, so the world's ending. No, it is not. We're talking about events that could affect us for 1 to 2 years. And this is possible. Out of the long term, the world's not ending. Not yet anyways, but we're talking about an event that would affect us for 6 months, 2 years, 3 years, something like that. We're talking about a grid down scenario. This is something that is not only possible, it is now in many people's eyes probable. You have major generals saying that we are going to have a civil conflict. You have major people that are in charge of not only some of the biggest companies in the world, basically setting themselves up for this kind of event. Not to mention we have all of the programming out there. And understand that when you bring up predictive programming or something like this, people go, oh, one of those people, right? Well, one of those people actually did research into what they have done for decades. There are operations that go back decades and decades and decades. We're talking about the three-letter agency. Anybody who is well educated on what the CIA and three-letter agencies have done, then they absolutely know that they work with and directly with media, and they have actually done things with movies. They've done things with all sorts of things. It's called propaganda. It exists. It is not a theoretical thing. It is now real. It's of course something that is all around us. And we honestly, it's kind of like the movie. It's kind of like the movie They Live, right? You take off your glasses and you see the aliens. Only in this part, it's not the aliens. It's really quite quite the opposite. It's the evil, right? It's the people that are running things, and that sounds nuts, right? But at the same time, we know that evil is not. In most cases, you don't have to think of them as an alien or this or that. You could think of them as the people that have the most money compared to the people that don't. We already know that there is a top 1% that runs everything. That is a fact. It is not a theory, right? We know that a majority of the money in the entire world is in the very, very, very tiniest minority of hands. So if that's the case, you've got a very small group of people that are making decisions for basically 8 billion people. Usually that means that not many of those 8 billion people are going to be happy with some of those decisions. Now, the decisions they're making for our short-term future are so huge that they can't just do it. They can't just make these decisions and switch the whole world off of things without actually doing things that none of us are going to like. In their mind, they said, well, they'll never go along with this, so we're going to have to figure out a way to do it. That's my thoughts anyways. But as far as proving that something is happening, we have plenty of evidence that not only are there cyber events happening all around us, we see the things that are caught, that are out in the public eye. We're not even catching all the other stuff. SolarWinds hack affected everything. It affected all of our military branches. It put backdoors in. We just had evidence, and we put this on, of course, our bibliography a couple weeks ago. They just came out and they confirmed exactly what my source said within the banking industry, that it was more of a hardware thing, that there are going to be hardware issues. So there are backdoors in the hardware side of things. So this isn't something that a software update can actually stop. Dex, as far as the hardware issue, we went over this, and it's something that on top of having the other backdoors that are all around, now we have absolute evidence that they're saying that the hardware and physical items are possibly going to be the cause of things ranging from bank outages to grid downs to cyber events to backdoors being open to terrorists. From a tech point of view, like, what is going on with that?
Well, I mean, technically, it is software that's on hardware that has to be updated. Some would call it firmware, but a lot of times, like we saw in the water issue, the water plants that were recently attacked, that was a piece of hardware. It was old hardware, and that's the problem. A lot of times, the stuff that gets placed, you think of it sort of like an appliance. You put it in, it does its job. It does what it's supposed to do, and if it's doing what it's supposed to do, you really don't think about it much, and you go about your day. It's not like the software that's on your computer that's constantly updating, especially if it's older. And that's what has been creating lots of vulnerabilities when they find these appliances or these hardware devices or network appliances, as some would refer to them, and they find vulnerabilities in the hardware. And a lot of times it's not in the hardware, it's in the software of the hardware, but it's to the end user, it's sort of like a piece of hardware. So yeah, that's those are definitely issues because even sometimes those have to be brought offline to be updated, depending on how old they are, depending on what type of system they are. So those challenges can be more daunting than, say, updating the software running on the computers that everybody in the office is using to either write programs or manage the customers or deal with emails and databases.
And as far as the other thing, that the kind of elephant in the room is of course people are focusing on Russia versus Ukraine, Israel versus Hamas. The entire world is kind of voting against the U.S. right now in this current Middle East ordeal. It's pretty obvious to see that Iran is going to be somewhat involved. They are threatening. They are saying that we've already crossed over many red lines. Obviously, there's going to be something there. Then you have Venezuela saying that they're going to possibly take over Guyana. They've already done a vote through their government saying, hey, we should take that over. These are all connected. Russia, Venezuela, Cuba, of course, Iran, North Korea, and China. With some of the crazy stuff that's been coming out with, of course, when you say programming, what is the purpose of programming? Well, programming can get us ready for something. Mentally, it can get the masses ready for an event. And again, they do this on purpose. As far as over the years, we've talked about this. We've talked about civil conflict being possible. We've talked about war with China. All of these things that we've talked about for years are now going to be a daily headline. And that's because we knew this was coming. But now that it is going to be in the main headlines, we have been essentially, all of us have been trained over the last few years to not trust media. It's almost so much so that it's almost like that is that part of their plan to make the masses not trust mainstream media. And again, no one believes mainstream media at this point. It's absolutely insane. There is so little trust in almost all of the legacy media that most of their people are getting news through outlets like mine and, of course, a lot of my peers, because they do not believe any of these places with big corporations behind them. Everybody knows these corporations are the ones that are running the planet. And as far as these corporations' goals, they want us to be as effective or efficient customers as possible. China is preparing for war. Xi is telling its people to be ready for war. China wants to be number one. And China is also home to, and I believe in part because of all of the corporations that ended up siding with China for labor and manufacturing, that's why China is becoming this, number one wannabe and contender, right? They've been building the biggest military in the world. This is something that needs to be looked at. If you don't know anything about this, China has the largest navy. They are building the largest air force. They now have a larger navy than the U.S. Not to mention, they have now 300. They say they could have up to 1,000 nukes. Again, they say that their goal is 1,000 nukes. A lot of people believe that they might actually already have that. And then weird decisions over the last few months. So Mike Minahan, the same guy, he's in charge of all of the military cargo that goes all over the world. Just a few months ago, I don't know. I don't want to guess, but less than a year ago, told through memos to his employees and to his understaff, said, hey, you guys need to get ready for war. We're going to war with China. And I believe he said by 2027, but he said we're going to war with China. People need to get ready for this. This same guy is in charge of the Air Mobility Command. This is how we get, all sorts of stores all over the world. If they are moving military gear, this is how they move it. The AMC, right? Removes tail numbers and unit info from planes, alarming watchdogs. So any identifying numbers on our cargo planes, they removed. Now, why would they do that? You can ask yourself this, and again, all of these are verifiable, backed up stories. So it's like any normal person who doesn't know about these little back page things, it's like you just, all you have to do is look for yourself. You will see the patterns that are showing up. All you have to do is really follow it just a little bit closer, and you'll see the pattern for yourself. You don't need somebody like me to tell you that war is coming. If you are following this closely, like the rest of our audience, you would know this is coming. As far as I mentioned again, Leave the World Behind, right? They had Kevin Bacon play this guy. If you haven't seen that movie, go see it. Again, it portrays kind of this scary, realistic view of what is happening. And they said it was a coincidence. But they have Kevin Bacon as the prepper, essentially saying, oh, what do you mean? I didn't need a source. I didn't need an elite to tell me that this was happening. All the things I knew, I got from the back page of the newspaper. The stuff that's not in the front. It's like they're making fun of us because they know we're right. They know that we've been knowing this for years at this point. And then DHS is warning that malicious AI use against critical infrastructure. They keep telling us. These are all backed up articles. So if you're new and never seen this before and somebody's sharing this with you, have a backup plan. There's so many resources on how you can prepare yourself. And if you have money issues, there's so many ways to actually prepare yourself cheaply. And that is, again, only going to be possible in a time like now. You cannot prepare after an event. You can't have a neighborhood protection plan after an event. There's so many aspects of being prepared that you can't have after an event. An event could be a storm. It could be a flood. It could be an earthquake, which again, there's a lot of crazy things going on in the seismic area as well, both on the East and the West Coast, with new science that is coming out about secret fault lines on the East Coast. So there could be any kind of disaster. Either way, there's many good reasons to get prepared right now. The FBI is warning of lone actor pilots for holiday events. Now, this was on top of saying that they've never seen so many different directions this coming from. Now, most people, including our audience, they said, oh, sure, they're just trying to scare people. It was the tiniest part. Most people focused on Christopher Wray, the leader of the FBI, talking at Congress, and most people focused about 5 of the senators asking them about Jeffrey EpiPen and all of these other all these other questions, which of course everybody here knows they're going to avoid all of those questions and they're not going to answer them for real. They're going to redact the client list. They're going to do all that. We know that we're not going to get anything out just as much as we're going to get alien disclosure from the government or true disclosure, right? But as far as the one thing that they did say that just kind of nobody covered, it was like everybody was focused on the more interesting stuff, is that there are more direct threats coming from every direction. As far as the FBI saying this, FBI is not trusted anymore either. But at the same time, if you understand how previous events have happened from 2001 to the Tonkin to all sorts of other events, then you might understand that that doesn't mean that we're out of the clear. In fact, it might mean that there just might be a different party behind whatever event comes. Now, when these big events happen, like 2001, big changes happen, like the Patriot Act and other things that have changed our lives forever. So I'm hoping that we don't have something like that happen. But again, most of us are waiting for a Pearl Harbor 2.0, some sort of event that comes out of nowhere to get the U.S. involved in a world war. And I'm talking about a hot world war. Of course, the China, Philippines, maritime. So this is the freshest out of all of these. Some of these are older that are really important, but this is fresh. China, Philippines, maritime standoff escalating on path that could drag the U.S. into conflict, analysts warn. Dex, if you quickly want to go over, how could this drag us into a war?
Well, just yesterday we were talking specifically about how the U.S. Department of State came out and made a statement specifically in reaffirming Article 4 of the 1951 U.S.-Philippines Mutual Defense Treaty against these armed attacks that the Philippines have had with their vessels, their armed vessels, their public vessels from the Chinese military and the Chinese Coast Guard. They expressly said, hey, we're going to abide by this. And if you look at that article, it specifically says that either side, Philippines or U.S., which are treated together, will act on any aggression. And we will act until the UN can come up with a peaceful resolution. And until then, we'll continue acting. In other words, we will do what we need to do to stop that aggression. So we are sitting in a position where we are going to be engaged in conflict, potentially with China, if they keep doing what they're doing to the Philippines. And they keep provoking this, whichever side is provoking it. Nonetheless, we're going to be involved, and we have to. And we just said it 2 days ago publicly from our State Department that we will abide by that treaty.
Yeah, and reaffirm that we're going to back that up. That's an easy way, especially if you believe, oh, well, this is all orchestrated. It's all circus. Well, then you could definitely plan to see something happen then. One boat painted as another, bumping into something and causing an escalation. That would be very easy to do, especially if you controlled both sides of the event, right? Or painted it and wagged the dog, the event or something. But as far as the different hackings, the different infrastructure that is now, they're telling you this. And a lot of folks, they don't believe it because now they are officially putting it out there. That's the thing. Now it's like reverse psychology. If they put something out in the news, now since everyone thinks that 100% of the news is now just completely fake, no one knows that what's going to happen. But the crazy thing is if you look through the real events that happen that we can confirm, you go back before that and they have predicted it almost 100% of the time in some sort of capacity in mainstream media. The mainstream media is it's not fully to just make up news. They make up the angle. That's the thing. If you look at any event, they'll have a video of a kid yelling at a Native American gentleman. Did they make up the clip? Did that exist? Yes, it did. But what did they do? They took the angle. They made the angle of the kid yelling at him and being this way. How did they shape that? They shaped the narrative around it. They didn't create the event. They shaped the narrative of what happened. That is what they're doing right now. And through this war, they're going to shape who you are mad at, who the enemy is, and of course, they're going to shape the view of all of this. And they're going to do it until the very end. The reason why is because they want the economy going. They want you to pay your bills, pay your taxes up until the very last second. And then when it happens, everybody's going to get caught off guard, even preppers. So that's the thing. This is something that we've watched for 5 years, and there are absolutely red flags right now that are showing us that we are closer than ever to an actual a war. We have over 1,000 active and retired military members in our channel and in our group and in our audience. You can just ask some of the folks in chat. There are a ton of folks will tell you which years they served, everything about it. As far as all of these active and retired military are saying the same thing, or I would say at least 90% of these, especially closer to active or newly retired, say the same thing, that this is not good, that this is not going anywhere good, and it's not going to get better. So people should get prepared. If you are prepared for a disaster, you can survive a disaster. We're not saying it's the end of the world. In fact, I believe it is the beginning of a new one. And this is when it really is going to get crucial. So I hope people are paying attention. Now, as far as the programming, people think that it doesn't exist. First of all, I think here's something that you can agree on. If you've never seen us before, you don't know us from Adam, which again, I am Adam, but if you don't know us from anything, take this for example. Are people divided now? And can you answer this question? Are people more divided than you've ever seen in your life? In your lifetime, no matter if you're 20 or if you're 90, are people more divided now than ever before? Can people have a political conversation at dinner? Can people tell their friends and family who they voted for? Depends, I guess, because after they tell, they're only going to have a limited number of friends left, right? Depending on which side they're on, is there more parties that are directly attacking each other now than ever before? Yes. And maybe it's all, totally hyped up with the mainstream media, but the point is, that is the point. Mainstream media, MSM, and all of these parties are coming down together to try to make us believe that we are absolutely against everybody and everything. It is a one for all. In a new world where our young and all of this next generation are completely self-absolved. They are all about selfies, about their self-image, about putting out the profile pic that shows that they are keeping up with the Johnsons. They are literally buried into a phone that we absolutely know is filled with propaganda, and so are the older folks as well. That those phones and the system that is going on right now is completely controlled, and the flow of information, if it is controlled, then you control the world. They are controlling all of our actions without even us knowing it, and that's why people really have to step back and think about everything they think, everything they see, everything they hear. And that doesn't mean you just don't believe anything. You have to go with your gut, and you have to go with what makes sense. What makes sense right now is that there is a coming event that will completely be able to tear down the house, do a demo. You can't remodel a house without doing a demo first. And you can't restart over a whole currency. You can't go, oh, we're going to go away from the petrodollar without tearing it down first. All of this is happening, and every change that's going to happen is going to not only limit our freedoms and limit the way that we live, it's also going to progress this whole new world that we're going into, a world where you won't need minimum wage jobs. You won't need middle class. These are things of the past. You're going to own nothing and be happy is a true statement, because guess what? Money is not going to, it's not going to be very helpful when there's robots taking our place within a couple decades. That is a very scary thought, and people really need to think about how fast time has flied over the past 20 years. It's been over 20 years since 9/11, and another 20 years, it's going to snap by like that. So people really need to get ready for the next coming year, because it is going to be insane. Not to mention we're coming up on the day where everybody drops something in to pick the prez, or think they're picking the prez, whatever it may be. As far as programming goes, this is the new movie, and it came out as people are still talking about Leave the World Behind, which we found so many more things. In fact, I believe I've seen every kind of breakdown of Leave the World Behind. There was even more. And the fact is with Leave the World Behind, the slow pacing and how they did it and the obvious changes in the background, those were not continuity issues. They were pointing things out to you. A lot of folks said, "Oh, the Obamas, they made that movie, they executive produced." There was a rumor that they actually bought the movie after it was done, and it was just their production company buying it. Absolutely not. Julie Roberts was actually on Jimmy Fallon. They said, "Oh, Obama, they worked on this film, right? They produced it. Were they kind of hands off? Were they even involved?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, they were very involved. In fact, the whole movie was based on Barack's personal reading list, which Leave the World Behind. They tweaked and changed to make it so freaking synchronous to what is going on right now. And then every single background change that they did, everything there was manufactured. What's crazy, we'll prove it here in a couple days, that they actually changed the background, the stage. It was not a house that just happened to be a coincidence. They changed things in the background to point out certain things. And the message behind that movie is absolutely terrifying. They use movies for this, and especially when you're talking about a former president whose production company has put out a serious message through that movie. It is absolutely insane that so many people missed it. And there's messages that you wouldn't believe. This movie is now coming out on the heels of that. And what is the general theme? What are people thinking about? What are songs about? What is music? That's the thing. Music and movies shape the literal generations. This is the fourth turning. People are talking about it. They are thinking it. It is happening right now. Everything is about civil conflict. This movie, which stars Kirsten Dunst, has Texas seceding, and actually they have them on the same team as California, and they're essentially fighting the U.S. government and the U.S. military, and it is absolutely nuts what they show in this. But they show a civil conflict happening, says to the Western forces as well as to the Florida Alliance, right? Assures the uprising will be dealt with swiftly. It shows many scenes. In fact, at one point, the gentleman is being held. The woman right here says, "We just tried to stay out of it." By what the news says, it sounds like it's something that it's actually pretty good that's happening, right? They're saying that the revolution, the thing that's happening, the split, is actually a good thing, right? This is the attitude that people have right now. And what is crazy is this is a reflection directly of what is going on. This is a big budget film. Kirsten Dunst is a journalist, which they make the journalists out in this future, very, very near future world as the heroes. And of course, it shows many scenes that are just absolutely terrifying of how realistic they are. They asked the president why, and this is all in the trailer. This isn't spoilers. It says, "How do you feel about?" It says, "Mr. President, do you regret the use of airstrikes against American citizens?" If people think that this is just, Hollywood movies doing nothing, this is because the entire theme of this year has been civil conflict. We've had from Bill Gates to Colonel McGregor. Everyone is saying that we won't even reach the day where we pick a prez. And a lot of us are starting to believe it. And not because we're gullible, because we've been watching this for 5 years, and now people, the regular people, are finding out. This is absolutely a trippy movie. It shows, this is one scene that really is going to stick with people. It says, "What are you doing? Hey, why are you doing this? We're Americans." And he goes, "Oh, okay. There's a misunderstanding here." He goes, "What? We're American, okay?" And then he goes, "Okay. What kind of American are you?" You catch the drift? You're either this American or you're that American. This is what's being pushed out into the mental fields of America. And if you are in any of the other allied countries, this is the same thing worldwide. Dex, when you saw this trailer, did this not trip you out?
Well, certainly, the theme was just like, come on, you got to do this now after we've heard Gilly Bates tell us that there's going to be one because of the event that happens next November. He said it's going to be hung and there will be a civil conflict. And, then we've got this coming out in the spring as we lead into that event. Certainly that stood out. Now, there's a lot of little things in the trailer that make me go, that doesn't sound right, or that seems crazy, or I don't understand where they're going with some of this, and I'm anxious to see the full plot and how it actually is played out and portrayed, because I'm sure there is, and who's behind everything. Because I'm sure there's a lot for us to learn from a predictive programming standpoint.
And in the movie, there's another quote. They say they take shots, they snipe journalists on the spot in DC. This is not some crazy dystopian world that, is so far off, like flying cars when Back to the Future came out. It's not some far off future. This is something that is so believable because people are calling for it. You have senators and congressmen. You have whole parties actually trying to do what is happening in this movie. I've had a secessionist here, somebody who was the lead of the party, come on the show when I first started this. They wanted California to secede, right? I mean, this is the thing. All of this is not only realistic, it's a very scary possibility. Hopefully, it is a low possibility. It is luckily not a probability. Hopefully we can all come together and really look past the media and everything that is telling us to hate each other and come together and try to find some sort of common ground. Because right now, people really need to be, friendlier than ever and start looking past what the media is telling us to look for and start thinking for themselves. People really need to stop calling each other names and you're anti this and you're that, or you're this or that. People need to understand, and it's only going to happen when somebody takes out the satellite, right? The satellite dish that is putting out this message. And I believe if I have that thought, that probably some pretty freaky people do too. Think about that. They believe that all of the bad is coming from somewhere. What are they going to do then? It's very, very crazy. We're gonna break this down like we are doing for Leave the World Behind when it comes out, but that's not until April. But again, go watch the trailer. Tell us what you think in the comments down below. We've linked it. It is definitely very, very weird. All of the connections that these movies and the producers and the people in them, how they are connected in every which way. So if you don't think that there's an actual concerted kind of effort to get this into everybody's head, then I would say look at the actual production companies, look at the companies that are behind this, look at the sponsors, look at who is doing this. It's all part of something way, way bigger. It's 4D chess, and we are the pawns, and that's what's scary. Thank you, everybody that has made it here today. If you haven't already, share this out with a friend or family member. Let them know. There's bibliographies on our website to show you everything. If you do want to support us, we're completely independent. You can always, of course, go to marfooglenews.com. And if you go to marfooglenews.com/energy, you can get one of the best solar generators on the market. I highly recommend this. I've used the Flex 1500 almost every week since I got it. For one thing or another, I've had to use this where I don't have an extension cord. Of course, I've used it for camping. I've used it for powering my house during storms. But as far as SHTF, why people go solar is because they are quiet. Just like an electric car, an electric generator is silent. These things don't make noise, so that way you can be the gray man. Not only that, a big perk is being able to hook this up to solar panels, which solar panels are easy. They sell foldable panels that have handle cases on them. In fact, the solar panels itself has a handle. You can take these with you anywhere, plug one cord from the solar panel into the generator, and you have power generating from the sun. If you want to put up multiple panels, you just daisy chain it like Christmas lights, which I'm sure many of you are understanding right now during December. Go over to marfooglenews.com/energy. Not only will it help us out, we're completely on our own, and we're against many, many of these mainstream medias that are trying to take any pot shot at any independent media they can, because guess what? They understand the views on small channels like this are equivalent to daytime CNN shows. And I'm not just talking about ourselves here. All of my peers, even the worst off channel, is getting the best views of some of these daytime news shows. Nobody is watching those networks anymore. The network is done, and they are trying to move over to YouTube. They're trying to move over to these things, and that is why you see the algorithm being messed with. They're paying for it. And again, you guys got to share out. You got to help all of our peers and our independent makers out there. Of course, try to go support them by liking, sharing, and of course, get the message out there. People need to be forewarned about some of this. They don't need to be scared about it. They need to be prepared. Thank you, Dex, for your service, and I appreciate you.
Much love. Great job, brother.
We will see you over on Marfoogle News, on Marfoogle TV, our sister channel. If you are in the chat already, we'll port you right over. Hang tight. But if you're watching the replay, just go to marfooglenews.com and you can find that in the show links right below in this video description. marfooglenews.com/energy. Make sure to use the code Marfoogle. And if you want to see that Civil War trailer, the link is in our show notes. So make sure to go check it out. Thank you guys. Be safe, be prepared, and Marf out.
Like a Rorschach test, I see what I see. I'm never gonna be what you want me to be. What you want me to be. Like a Rorschach test, I see what I see.